You know, every living thing on this planet, from the tiniest microbe to the biggest blue whale, it's all running on a biological blueprint. For decades, we were pretty sure we had the rules figured out. But what if that rulebook has some wild plot twists? And what if unlocking those twists is the secret to building a whole new kind of artificial intelligence?
All right, so let's really get into it. We're going to unpack the story of life's most foundational principle, and more importantly, how learning to break its rules is sparking some absolutely incredible breakthroughs. So the story really kicks off back in 1958 with this exact diagram from the mind of the great Francis Crick. He put forward this powerful, elegant idea to explain how the genetic code turns into, well, everything that we are. He gave it a pretty grand name, the central dogma of molecular biology. And the idea, well, it was beautifully simple. Genetic information, he said, flows in just one direction. Think of it as a one-way information highway that's operating inside every single one of your cells, right this very second. Here's a simple way to picture it. DNA is the master blueprint, the whole library of instructions locked away safely in the cell's nucleus. Now, you don't want to take the master copy out, right? So the cell makes a temporary photocopy of just one page. That's RNA. And then that copy, the RNA, is used to build the final product, a protein. The protein is the machine that goes out and actually does all the work in the cell.
Okay, so step one on this information highway, that's called transcription. This is where the cell makes that temporary RNA copy from the master DNA blueprint. A specific gene gets read, and its information is literally transcribed into a new molecule we call messenger RNA, or just mRNA for short. That mRNA message then zips out of the nucleus and finds a little molecular factory called a ribosome. And this is where step two, translation, happens. The ribosome reads the mRNA's code letter by letter and builds a protein based on those instructions. So, DNA to RNA to protein. Simple, clean, and for the longest time we thought, yep, that's the whole story. Done.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Biology is never that simple, right? It turns out this beautiful, elegant rule, well, it gets broken. A lot. There are all these unexpected detours and even full-on U-turns on this supposedly one-way information highway.
And you know what's just fascinating about this whole thing? One of the very first people to call it out was Francis Crick himself. Just 12 years after he first proposed the idea, he wrote that his own dogma was probably a considerable oversimplification. He was a true scientist. He knew there was always more to the story.
And this right here, it's the perfect picture of how his thinking was changing. This is his updated diagram from 1970. See all those new dotted arrows? He was already starting to account for the fact that maybe, just maybe, information could flow in other ways, like from RNA back to DNA. Suddenly, that simple one-way street was looking more like a crazy, complex highway interchange.
And guess what? He was totally right. We discovered things like retroviruses. HIV is a famous example, that actually perform reverse transcription. They can write their RNA code back into our DNA, a complete U-turn. And then we found prions, these weird misfolded proteins that can basically infect other healthy proteins and force them to misfold too. That's information going from protein to protein. So what's the takeaway here? The central dogma? It's really more of a strong suggestion, not an unbreakable law.
So all this complexity in biology, it presents this incredible challenge for us. If we want to build AI that can actually understand biology to help us cure diseases, we can't just teach it the simple, clean rules. We have to teach it the whole, messy, complicated, and beautiful story. Right now, we've got these super powerful AI models, but they're kind of like experts who are stuck in their own little bubbles. We have models that are geniuses at reading DNA. We have other models that are experts on RNA. And we have yet another set that are masters of understanding proteins. They're all brilliant, but they just don't talk to each other.
They're what we call unimodal, which basically just means they only speak one of these molecular languages. And because of that, they miss the whole picture. They don't see the crucial connections, how a tiny change in the DNA blueprint can ripple through and affect the RNA message and completely alter the final protein machine. So the big question is, how do you get these different experts to actually talk to each other? How do you create an AI that gets the entire flow of information from beginning to end? Well, that is the brilliant idea behind a new approach called bio-long fusion. Now, what's so clever about bio-long fusion is that it doesn't try to build some new giant model from the ground up. Instead, it's way smarter. It acts like a bridge or maybe a master translator, fusing the knowledge from the existing expert models for DNA, RNA, and protein.
It weaves these three separate information streams into one single, unified understanding. But to do that, you need a common language, right? You need something like a biological Rosetta Stone that can translate between these different codes. And biology, in its elegance, already gave us one. It's called a codon. A codon is simply a three-letter word in the language of DNA and RNA that lines up perfectly with one amino acid, one building block in the language of proteins. It's the perfect key. So here's the game plan. First, it extracts the specialized knowledge from each of the expert models. Then, it uses that codon Rosetta Stone to align everything, to get them all speaking the same language. After that, it fuses them together into a single, cohesive picture. And with that unified view, it can make way better, way more accurate predictions.
Okay, I know this all sounds super technical and cool, but why should we care? What does it actually mean for us? Well, this is where things get really exciting. Because creating an AI that sees the whole biological picture isn't just an academic game. It has profound, real-world implications.
Just look at this. When you put it to the test on a real-world problem, in this case designing better mRNA vaccines, BioLang Fusion significantly outperforms the best individual model on its own. It's not even close. By combining all those different insights, it gets a much deeper understanding and delivers better results. You know, teamwork really does make the dream work, even for AI. But honestly, the really mind-blowing part isn't just that it's better, it's how it's better. See, the model doesn't just smash all the information together randomly, it's much smarter than that. It actually learns to think like a biologist. Okay, you have to see this. This is just incredible. This chart shows what the model is paying attention to. When it was given a task about mRNA stability, how long the RNA message lasts, look what it did. It learned, all on its own, to pay the most attention to the RNA data, the green bars. I mean, that's exactly what a human biologist would do. It's incredible. The AI is learning to prioritize information based on the specific problem it's trying to solve.
And this isn't just theory. This translates directly into some huge potential breakthroughs. We are talking about designing more stable and effective mRNA vaccines. We're talking about better ways to produce life-saving therapeutic proteins and developing totally new treatments by finally understanding what makes certain molecules work better inside our cells. This is a real step towards a future of smarter, personalized medicine.
It's wild to think this all started with that simple little diagram of a one-way street. But by finally embracing the complexity, all the exceptions, and the full interconnected story of our own biology, we are now teaching machines to understand the code of life in a way we never could before. And it just leaves you with this one massive question. If we can teach an AI to read the entire story of life, from the first letter of DNA to the final working protein, what diseases, what suffering could we finally write out of existence for good?